Liam Spencer's death was like a thunderclap on a cloudless day, unexpected, violent, and impossible to ignore. One moment he was alive, a pillar in the tangled web of power, passion, and betrayal that is the Forrester, Spencer, Logan triangle. The next, he was gone. A fatal car crash on Mulholland Drive. The official statement cited slick roads, possible mechanical failure. But those closest to Liam knew better. He'd been paranoid in his final days, checking over his shoulder, avoiding certain meetings, leaving cryptic messages that no one understood until it was too late. The shock of Liam's death was still fresh when another jolt hit the Forrester family, the appearance of a new will. A legal document filed mere days before his death, completely contradicting the prior version on record. According to this new will, nearly all of Liam's estate, including his shares in Spencer Publications and Forrester Creations, were to be transferred to a man named Jason Carrington, a stranger to everyone in the room. No one had ever heard the name before. He wasn't a friend, not an investor, not even an acquaintance anyone could place. The will was airtight, notarized, stamped, filed correctly. But it didn't feel right. Not to Steffi, who had known Liam in ways no one else had. Not to Brooke, who had seen her share of power plays over the years. Not to Hope, whose tears turned to suspicion the moment the name Carrington was read aloud. The family was split. Some wanted to believe Liam had good reason. Others weren't so sure. But the cracks widened quickly when Steffi, driven by her instincts and a deep sense of betrayal, handed the will over to her legal team. What they found ignited a war. There were signs, subtle but definitive, of forgery. Liam's signature, although eerily accurate, contained pressure inconsistencies. The witness signatures were traced to a pair of offshore shell companies. Even the ink used had trace elements of a compound not manufactured in California. Brooke, always perceptive, took matters into her own hands. She called in a private investigator. She pulled archived phone records, texts, emails, and security footage from Liam's office. What emerged was a portrait of a man afraid, hunted, even. He had flagged a suspicious money trail weeks before his death. He had started documenting oddities, surveillance camera blackouts, strange cars tailing him, and most notably, someone trying to access his personal server. But before these leads could be fully unpacked, a stranger appeared. A young woman, soaking wet and trembling, collapsed at the doorstep of the Logan estate. Her appearance was haunting. She was beautiful, fragile, with a haunted look in her eyes and a total lack of memory. But what turned heads, what shattered hearts, was the ring she wore, a wedding band with the engraving Liam and H. A storm erupted. Who was she? A long-lost wife? An amnesiac victim of an unspeakable crime? Or was she a pawn inserted into the grieving family at their weakest moment? The woman couldn't answer. She remembered nothing except Liam's name and a recurring dream of a man whispering, "Trust no one." The Forresters scrambled to piece together the truth. Hope felt threatened, confused, emotionally torn. Steffi, still reeling from the will, suspected the woman's presence was part of the same conspiracy. Ridge called in favors. Thomas used facial recognition tools. The woman's fingerprints led nowhere. No ID. No record. She was a ghost. And that's when Brooke got her first break. A blurred surveillance photo captured a figure visiting Liam's private cabin 2 nights before his death. After enhancement, the man's face became clear. Wyatt Spencer. Liam's estranged half-brother. Thought to be abroad. Thought to be disconnected from the family drama. But in reality, he had been hiding in plain sight. Operating under aliases. Moving funds. And worse, fabricating a person, Jason Carrington. As it turned out, Jason Carrington was a fake. A digital ghost created by Wyatt with forged credentials, built slowly over a year with an online presence that seemed authentic. The emails, the passport, the business records, all fake. All orchestrated by Wyatt. But why? The answer went back years. Wyatt had always lived in Liam's shadow. Liam had the charm, the legacy, the approval of Bill Spencer. Wyatt, no matter how hard he worked, was always second best. The final straw came when Liam shut down a major investment Wyatt had spent months preparing. Not out of malice, just business. But for Wyatt, it was betrayal. That's when the plan began. He disappeared from the public eye, returned to LA. Under disguise, began crafting the identity of Carrington, and sought out a woman, Hannah Doyle, a once promising actress who had vanished from the public eye after a string of mental health episodes and legal troubles. Wyatt found her vulnerable, confused, drugged her, and planted the idea that she was Liam's wife. He gave her the ring, the clothes, the memories, false ones. Then he waited for the perfect time. Liam's car was tampered with. The brake line cut. The digital systems overridden. The crash was inevitable. Wyatt even ensured the wreck would be blamed on slick weather by hacking into local DOT maintenance logs. And then, once Liam was gone, Carrington stepped in, backed by legal documents Wyatt had spent months forging. The plan was nearly perfect until emotions got in the way. The woman began to remember things, real memories. She cried at the sight of a photo of Liam and Steffi. Not out of recognition, but out of confusion. She asked questions Wyatt couldn't answer. She began to suspect him. Eventually, she confided in Brooke. What followed was a coordinated sting. Brooke, Steffi, and Ridge, working in secret with local law enforcement, set up a trap. A public event. An awards gala where Carrington was to be honored posthumously on Liam's behalf. The cameras rolled. The press circled. And at the height of the spectacle, Brooke exposed the truth. Jason Carrington did not exist. He was a fabrication, a ghost, a mask. And behind the mask stood Wyatt Spencer, who had watched from the wings, pretending to mourn. He tried to flee, but the LAPD had already closed the exits. Wyatt was arrested on live television. The fallout was seismic. Hope collapsed. Steffi withdrew. Brooke stood tall. Ridge exploded in fury. Bill Spencer, shattered, offered no defense for his surviving son. And Wyatt? He confessed in a stunning courtroom speech that stunned even his own lawyers. Not just to the forgery, but to the murder. The manipulation. The exploitation of a vulnerable woman. The betrayal of his own blood. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. But even that wasn't the end. After Wyatt's trial, authorities uncovered a hidden vault in one of his properties. Inside were documents going back years, journals, recordings, even blueprints of the crash site. Among them was a USB drive marked with a single word, insurance. Inside the drive was a recording. Liam's voice. If anything happens to me, check Wyatt. He's not who he says he is. He's planning something. And if I'm right, he won't stop until he has everything. Tell Steffi. Tell Brooke. Protect Kelly. The family was devastated all over again. The woman Hannah underwent treatment, slowly regained her memories, and eventually testified against Wyatt. She was not a villain. She was a victim. The Forresters offered her sanctuary. She declined, choosing instead to start over, far from the fame, the shadows, and the pain. As for Liam's legacy, his true will was recovered, untouched in a safety deposit box in Aspen. He had left everything to Kelly in trust. Steffi was named guardian. Hope was included. The family was meant to heal. And now, finally, with truth restored and justice delivered, they could try. But in this world, peace never lasts. Because somewhere, in a dark office, a phone buzzes. A hand answers. A voice says, Phase 2 begins now. Because in the bold and the beautiful, no truth stays buried. No secret stays hidden. And no betrayal goes unanswered.